As a child, my parents would take me into the great big city of Chicago, sometimes by train and other times by car. And I would press my cheek against the window and I would look up at these gigantic skyscrapers towering over me like giants. Has anyone here been to Chicago? Right? Yeah, raise your hand. You had a deep dish pizza, you walked around the city. Well, you would know Chicago has 3 distinct smells: pizza, hot dogs, and gyros. And you would also know of these beautifully ornate buildings that adorn the skyline from the turn of the century. Now, at the time, I didn't think anything of it. My parents would take me to museums or Christmas shop at the window displays in Marshall Fields. And it wasn't until 7 years old, I was standing in the Field Museum of Natural History, and Mom says to me nonchalantly, "You know, this was built by your great-great-grandfather's company." I blinked, and with an expression not changed, I immediately fixated on the mold-a-rama. You remember these things? They're like miniature plastic factories. You put the quarter in, and it's like, wah! And then all of a sudden, out comes a piping hot, rubber stinking toy mold. In this case, it was a dinosaur. And Mom said, that is all I cared about. And it wasn't until later that I understood the complexities and the elaborateness that went behind and the team effort that went behind this family legacy. My great-great-grandfather, Edward Probst, followed by his son Marvin, were partners at an architectural firm called Graham, Anderson, Probst, and White. It was the largest architectural firm under one roof in the entire world for the first half of the century, for 51 years run. And he started small. When he didn't even have, he barely had a high school education, and he apprenticed for a man named Daniel Hudson Burnham and helped design the World's Columbian Exposition of 1893. Now, what's really exciting about this is that it's 20 years after the Great Chicago Fire. The fire created an entire blank canvas, a blank slate for Chicago. It produced an additional half-mile of shoreline just from the rubble. And so, Graham, Anderson, Probst, and White, they really got to decide how they wanted the vision and the impact of this beautiful city. And now, 100 years later, as his great-great-granddaughter, this will live on for me in perpetuity because my family's always connected to it. And it got me believing at a very young age that anything is possible. And so I often asked myself, well, what could I do? What could be my legacy? What could be my impact? Now, my legacy is a little bit different. His was building Chicago. Mine is building communities and helping people have a better life. And I'm going to drop you into that story very, very quickly. But first, you are all here to learn how to invest. And that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Because if you get astute at this and you make good investment decisions, you'll achieve financial independence and ultimately freedom, which is a big reason you come to a conference like this. And I'm here today to share with you what to do next or along the way. As you're creating investment vehicles, generating wealth, and you arrive at that destiny, then what? Then what? So here is your blank canvas. I invite you to create or enhance your legacy. And I hope to inspire you to create your own vision, mission, values, purpose, and impact towards a legacy. And then take inspired action to achieve that. So today we're going to talk about 3 things. So number 1, having your purpose and vision larger than yourself. Because we need more people, moving towards real estate investing, thinking about the impact that they want to have on the world, not just for our children, but for our children's children and many generations to come after that. So today, my name is Katie Hilborn. I'm a public speaker. I'm the founder of Global Orphan Prevention and Compass Rose International, and I'm honored to be speaking with you today. I'm about to take you on a narrative journey under 3 themes. Number 1, have your purpose and vision larger than yourself. Number 2, think big, start small. And number 3, taking inspired action. So number 1, having your purpose and vision larger than yourself. Right out of college, I knew 2 things were certain. 1, I wanted to help people. And 2, I wanted to have an impact. I just didn't know how that would look. And so I started doing little one-off volunteer projects. I worked at a preschool for orphans in East Africa. And then fast forward a few years later, and I had an opportunity to work at a wildlife refuge in Bolivia, helping monkeys. And I thought, who doesn't want to help monkeys? And so I hopped on a plane 7 hours south to Bolivia, and then got on a bus 12 hours north into the middle of the Amazon jungle, and I said, okay, I'm here to work with the monkeys. Oh, sorry, Katie, there's no monkeys. How about a puma? That little voice in my head says, Katie, you don't even like house cats. You think you're gonna like a puma? And so I said to the volunteer coordinator, well, what's my option? She goes, well, how about a habitat manager? Great, what's that? Glorified poop shoveler. You know what? I'll take the puma. And so at the wildlife refuge, these animals are rescued off the black market, and so we can't release them back into the wild. So my job was to walk her on a leash 7 days a week, 7 hours a day. And how do you walk a puma on a leash? Well, it's quite simple. You take the leash, you attach it to her collar, and then you wrap it around your body. Not 1, 2, 3 times, and then you carabine it to yourself. Now that little voice in your head saying you probably shouldn't do something, it's often right. And so it was fun in the beginning. The doors of the enclosure would open and off she'd go, and I'd be running after her. And there's one thing to know, that you do not walk puma. Puma walks you. And everything was great until one day. It was a dark and stormy afternoon, and you all, if you have a house cat and you know what happens when the weather patterns change, they get a little crazy. And so I came to the enclosure, and they were running around, jumping platform to platform, biting each other. And I didn't want to go in, but I thought about my alternative job as the habitat manager, and I went in anyways. The mistake was this. So I come in and I say, oh, they're Bolivian, so they're Spanish speaking, and I'm like, hola chica, hola, ¿cómo está? ¿Está bien? And my one mistake was this. There was a tree, so the puma was about where that man is right there, and there was a tree, and I put the tree between me and the puma. And as soon as I did that, it got to me in 2 jumps, and its big old 220-pound body is right here, and its head is right here, and I say abajo, which means down. Abajo, 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 5 times, I remember. And it came around and bit me right here in the love handle, and then it went off. And I backed out slowly, backed out slowly, backed out slowly, and then I get out of the enclosure and I start crying like a little baby. And the volunteer coordinator's like, Katie, are you okay? And I said, no, I came here for the monkeys. Suffice to say, they transferred me to the monkey park 12 hours away the very next day. But I got this thinking, what kind of impact am I actually having here? And is this the legacy that I want to leave? I mean, I can just hear it now, my offspring 100 years from now. Yeah, you remember great-great-aunt Katie. Well, she went to Bolivia and got herself killed by a puma. No, that's not the legacy I want to leave. And so I went back to the drawing board. I went back to the blank canvas. Next stop, Nepal. South of China, north of India, home of the famous Mount Everest. Y'all paying attention in geography class? Right, Nepal. So next stop, Nepal, and I decided to travel a little bit more intelligently this time, and I knew I wanted to start a charity. I just didn't know how. And so it was a search and discovery, a process of following my intuition, and I began volunteering in orphan homes. And what I soon realized that there was all these children with living parents. In fact, UNICEF did a study, 85% of children in orphan homes have living parents. And so that summer, we spent buying the widowed or abandoned mothers' form of income generation so that they could afford to keep their children. So, cows, buffaloes, goats, things like this. And this is how my charity, Global Orphan Prevention, was started. Now, fast forward a few months towards the end of the summer, and my friend Deepak, he says, Katie, I love what you're doing. Can you come down to my family village and buy them a cow? And I said, yes, that sounds amazing. I only have $500 left, and I would love to use that at your family village. And so on we went by bus, 27 hours south to the Indian border in the jungle lowlands. And yes, this is a photo I actually took of the roads. Himalayan travel is insane. It's often windy roads, 500-foot drop on either side, excessive speeds. It is not for the faint of heart. I happen to love it. So I get down to the jungle lowlands, and the elders in the village, through a translator, says, Katie, we are so happy you're here to build a school. What? Deepak, did you tell them I was here to build a school? And he says, Katie, it's okay, just try your best, Man, and so that night, they prepared me a delicious curry meal, and the next morning, I woke up with E. coli. There is nothing worse in life than getting E. coli in the hot, sweaty jungle with no electricity, no running water, no toilets, and pooping your pants. It was miserable, and I wanted to go home. Fast forward a few days, and Deepak and the team said, Katie, we don't have much time left. Can you please just come to the school site and meet the children? So I said yes. And we made the journey, 40 minutes, by foot to the school site. And right before we arrive, about 100 yards away, I faint. I'm so sick, I faint under the jungle sun. And I peek up over the grass blade, and before me, I am walking into a ceremony. And I can't even stand on my own 2 feet. There are hundreds of people waiting for me. I mean, they must have really wanted the school. And so, in fact, at one point, I run off the stage and vomit in the bush, and all these children are over me petting my head. And it was the first time that I thought, maybe the vision's larger than me. Maybe my purpose is larger than me. And so the next morning, I was still going back and forth. I'm like, I was right out of college. I had $1,000 in my bank account. I can't build you a school. Are you crazy? And I went back and forth. And then my French travel companion, he pulls his necklace off, and it's the Buddhist symbol for invincible. And he puts it on my neck, and he gives me $1,500. He says, take this $1,500, combine it with your $500, and build the foundation, the concrete slab. We can build it right now, today, this week. And then you go home and you raise the rest of the money and you come back and you finish that school. And so I did. I went home to Breckenridge, Colorado, where I was living, and I was working at a coffee shop, and I fundraised that entire year, and we returned 1 year later as promised, and we built that school. So it got me thinking, this happened because the vision and the purpose was larger than me. When I was working in the wildlife refuge, it wasn't bigger than me. All I wanted to do was pet monkeys. That's why I went. But the school has multiple generations rippling down from it for centuries to come. That was bigger than me. So now, here is your blank canvas. So having your purpose and vision larger than yourself ensures that your vision is met. So start with your why. Your why is your through-line investment to impact. Because it's going to get challenging, and it's going to get hard, and your inspiration, your motivation, it's going to wane, and it's going to wear. And the people that rely on their own motivation or their own internal reward as the end game, they phase out. They hit a ceiling. So every single one of you is capable of generating wealth and making that wealth meaningful beyond fiscal independence. As Tony Robbins says, financial success without fulfillment and impact is failure. So I bet you in 10 years from now, we went back and we did the research. Those of you that have achieved financial independence, were doing it in something larger than yourself. I bet you that. So some of the greatest philanthropists of our times are definitely doing it in service for themselves. So Bill Gates, for example, he has a net worth of $73 billion. What most people don't realize is that only 25% of that comes from Microsoft. The rest comes from real estate investing. And he said philanthropy is the largest contributor towards his success. And he said giving is far better than receiving. Another man, Andrew Carnegie from New York. Now, he didn't always start off good. He was on the road to leading a not-so-nice legacy. He was known as the robber baron. But eventually, at one point, he had a midlife change, and he changed his heart and decided to donate majority of his wealth to charity before he died. And he ended up donating over 3,000 public libraries and public spaces and creation of several colleges. He's probably the most famous example of real estate philanthropy of our time. Now, you don't have to be a billionaire, developer mogul to make an impact. There's also something called the Pledge 1% movement. You can actually go to this website and register, but you pledge equity, time, product, or profit for eternity. And, I encourage you actually to go one step further as well. Say you're maybe you're a realtor and you donate 10 or 20% of your commission to a charity of your choice. So there's so many different ways to start orienting yourself towards your impact, towards your legacy. Maybe you're improving neighborhoods and communities, you're remodeling homes, whatever that is. What does that community need? Maybe it needs a community garden. Maybe it needs a museum or a learning center. Start thinking about how can you beautify your neighborhoods that you're investing in? Because your real estate value is just going to increase if you do that. It's a win-win for everybody. So just start thinking consciously about that as we move forward. Okay, we're going to do a really quick thought experiment. I strongly suggest you close your eyes. It really works better. You don't have to, but I do suggest it. So if you had $10 million to spend on philanthropy, meaning you have to spend it, what would you do? So go ahead and close your eyes. Take a deep inhale, breathe. Hold. Exhale. Take another deep inhale, breathe. Now, how would you spend that philanthropy? Visualize it, feel it. And when you are ready, you may open your eyes. Good. Okay, so now we've been thinking big, we have our visions, and now we're moving into starting small. Starting small is how we move towards lasting impact. We're still in Nepal. Fast forward to April 2015. There was a devastating earthquake. In fact, there was 3 earthquakes over a 2-week period. And it killed 10,000 people, 1 million homes were destroyed, and it impacted 50% of the country's economy. Meanwhile, at Everest Base Camp, A large block of snow fell from 28,000 feet high down into a crevasse to base camp at 18,000 feet. And it created an air blast and a wind tunnel that was equivalent to the Hiroshima bomb. People at base camp saw a wall 800 feet high of debris barreling down on them. It was so intense that 1,500 feet away, the bark on trees were completely stripped clean. Many people died. And so the country and the moment is in total chaos. The government doesn't know how to prepare for it because everything is remote access Himalayas. Like some of these villages take 3 to 12 hours on foot to get to. So there was reports that 1-2 months after the earthquake, people weren't even being seen once. And the country was so ill-equipped that international aid was flooding in and just sitting on idle on the tarmac at the airport for months. And so what happened was, this was the birth of the guerrilla humanitarian. That's what the media dubbed us, the guerrilla humanitarian, small groups of people that came together for the common good to make change when everything else was failing around them. And so it was people that were already in the country, Everest climbers, mountaineers, it was doctors, it was lawyers, it was just regular people. It was me, nonprofit founders of completely separate charities that knew the country and just flew there to see how it could help. So we formed these tight-knit expedition teams, and what we did was we traveled into the epicenter. That is another photo that I took of the road. We traveled into the epicenter and we delivered rice, tarps, we rebuilt health posts, and we organized our own expeditions. Now, this is a very tumultuous time. In the 3 months after the earthquake, there's 450 independent aftershocks. On top of that, it's monsoon season. And so the rains come and the land will literally slide out from under you. So there's a sense of urgency. Get in, drop the supplies, and get out. Because you could get stuck in a place, or you could get stuck out of a place. And so as we're thinking about like these start small, these little things that we can do to make a difference, because at the moment we're like, oh my gosh, like the big vision is to help Nepal all, in its totality, but that is beyond us. We don't know where to go, so we started small. So we did what we could. And by the end of those 3 months, we constructed 8 semi-permanent birthing centers and health posts, and we delivered over 300 birthing kits, 300 bags of rice, and tarps and other medical supplies. So the team was highly effective in doing what we wanted to do. So think big and start small. So with your own visions, thinking big, what is something that is that's gonna get you energized out of your bed every day, and that when you've accomplished it, you're just as excited as when you started it? So that's your big. And then starting small, starting small is just to find one achievable task you can do every day. It can be as simple as making a phone call. But what's happening here is just doing that little achievable task is that you're reconfirming your priorities, that this is what you want to do. And this is for everything in your life, like not just creating your impact towards legacy, but as you're building your investment vehicles, generating wealth, starting small. Because small things lead up to big things. And talking about it doesn't leave an impact, posting it on social media doesn't leave an impact, but action does. And no individual action is too small. Which brings us to the next point. Taking inspired action. So the best time to take action is when you come up with the idea. Okay, we're still in Nepal. Fast forward to the end of the earthquake. My American team goes home, and I said to my friend, Dr. Lakshmi Tamang, I say, Lakshmi, what can we do next? Everybody's gone, what could we do? So we started investigating. Now we've been in the earthquake, disaster relief phase. Now we're moving into the rebuilding phase. And I said to Lakshmi, well, what can we do? And she says, Well, there's this one particular village in the earthquake impact zone, and it's a village of entire missing girls. And I said, well, what's going on there? And she says, well, it's located in the #1 child trafficking district in the whole country. And it happened to be in the earthquake impact zone at the epicenter. And I said, well, what should we do? And so we decided to go undercover to this village and figure out what the heck is going on. And so we went under the guise of working for the United Nations World Food Program, collecting earthquake impact data. Now, we did collect all that data and we did send it to the WFP. But what we were doing at the same time is we were trekking village to village and sitting in the homes of families and saying, where are your missing girls? Now, at the bottom of the hill, nobody's talking. We go higher, nobody's talking. We go higher, nobody's talking. Eventually, we emerge above the clouds, and we arrive to a village that is of the Tamang people. This is the indigenous. And what they tell us is that the politicians at the bottom of the hill are taking the girls at the top of the hill and selling them to India, into the brothels to be used as prostitutes. And the people at the bottom of the hill are the ruling class. They're the high castes of Hindus. And so, right then and there, I said to them, how can we stop this to make sure another daughter is never taken again? And a little girl emerges from the shadows and through a translator says, education. We want to go to school, and we need jobs. And because she knew that that is the surest way to stop trafficking, because these traffickers, just a little backstory, is they prey on the vulnerable. They prey on the illiterate and the disempowered and the disadvantaged. And they offer them, they prey on people looking for a better life. And so they'll say, oh, we'll come to the capital. I'll get you a job. You can send money home to your family. And so the girls actually leave willingly, and then they're taken forcibly the rest of the way. And so we knew education is the surest way to stop this, and job creation. And so right then and there, I said yes to building a girls' learning center and dormitory. And we would stock it with programs in leadership and entrepreneurial training. And 6 years later, as promised, that center was built. It was built this year in February. Thank you. Oh. And so, why did this happen? Why, 6 years later, were we still very committed to making this happen? And it's because of something called inspired action. What's the difference between forced action and inspired action? So forced action is your logical brain trying to make something of it, whereas inspired action comes from the heart. It feels good and whole and true. Whereas forced action, it can feel a little negative. It could feel like it's coming from fear-based. So, and you're hanging around too much in the what ifs. What if I fail? What if I'm rejected? What if I lose somebody? And if you're hanging out in the what ifs, that leads to procrastination, which leads to pessimism. So we want to make sure that our decisions are coming from the heart, inspired action. Not our headquarters, but our heart quarters. Our headquarters doesn't always know what's right for us, but our heart quarters knows. And the best time to take action is when you come up with the idea. Don't wait. If you wait 6 months, if you wait a year, your motivation, your inspiration, it's going to wear, and you're less likely to take action on what you want to achieve. So inspired action. And you know what? Don't worry about the naysayers. So one of the big, this is science. Science says only 8% of people take action on their vision. Only 8%. Why? Why? Because they listen to the critics. They're falling victim to other people's opinions. That is one of the #1 reasons people don't take action on their vision. Graham, Anderson, Probst, and White, at the turn of the century, they received multiple generations of criticism for their work. Multiple generations. That's like 60, 70, 80 years of critics. They didn't like their designs. It was a Beaux Arts neoclassical design. They didn't like it. But you know what? They didn't listen to it because they had a vision for Chicago, and they did it anyway. And now, 100 years later, Chicago is known world known as some of the best architecture in the world. Also, when I came back to Denver and I told my board of directors, I said, I'm going to throw a black tie gala to pay for this building. They said no. They go, no, you can't do it. You can't bring the right people. You can't bring the money. You don't have what it takes. And you know what I said to them? Too late. I'm doing it anyway. And all of them quit except for one person. The one person that stayed is still with me today. And they all quit. And 4 months pass, I have my black tie gala, and we raised 3 times the amount than any nonprofit consultant said we could do at a first-year gala. 3 times the amount. So 2 things as you're moving forward: take inspired action and don't listen to those naysayers. So today, as you continue the conference, you're going to be learning about your real estate investing. You're going to learn about different vehicles generating wealth. And then you're also going to be thinking consciously about the impact you want to have towards your legacy. So just remember 3 things. 1, have your purpose and vision be larger than yourself. Think big, start small, and take inspired action. So energy flows where your focus goes. So we're just going to do a very quick thought experiment here. So in a second here, you're going to turn to the person next to you and answer 2 questions. Number 1, what's your purpose and your vision and impact towards creating a legacy? So what's your big idea? And then answer number 2, what is 1 step? 1 step you can begin this week to move you towards that. Okay, so we're going to have 1.5 minutes each. So turn to the person next to you. And remember, answer these questions. Okay, ready, set, go. What's your vision?
Your monkey story inspired me a little bit on what my vision is. And I will say that I want to open a wildlife sanctuary.
Congratulations.
So,
okay, beautiful.
Yes.
And what's 1 step you can take this week?
I think it's being here right now. Step
Good.
1, starting out.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, Dustin.
Thank
you. Okay, we had someone back here. Okay, go ahead and stand up. What's your name and what's your expertise?
Good morning. My name is Didica Taylor. I'm actually from Colorado Springs. I drove all the way up here to see you. Oh. You're so cute. I have to tell you that. So cute. Anyways, and I'm married to a man, so.
So cute.
Anyways, what I was telling this young lady is my husband and I have owned small businesses for many years, and we didn't have any guidance or mentorship, and we had a lot of pitfalls on the way, and we finally met that couple who likes to sue people for a living. Oh. And so walking out of that situation, I just really wanted to help small business owners be properly educated and protected. So I own my own company. It's called Lighthouse Business and Personal Solutions, and that's what I do. I primarily help small businesses.
Awesome. Oh, congratulations. And so what's your next step?
Being here and then just breaking through that fear and going out and handling the rejection.
I love it. Thank you so much. Okay, you heard some really great examples of how these real estate experts are using their impact towards legacy. There's other things too. It's actually, now I'm not the expert, so I'm not going to advise you on this, but it's much better to donate real estate than cash to charities. It's something about you can avoid the capital gains taxes, and what happens is the charity, if you donate real estate over land, over cash, the charity will get actually 20% more that way. So talk to your lawyer about that. But there's so many different ways that you can move towards impact towards your legacy. Okay, specific next step. Within the next 48 hours, I invite you to write down all the tasks that you can start this month to move you towards your big vision. And if you were inspired by what you heard today and you or your company would like to support us, come see me after I speak, or conversely, you can email me. And I also want to give a big thanks to the organizers of this event, Justin, Jared, Becca, where are you? Thank you so much for bringing me on to speak. Much appreciated. And I'll leave you with a story. There once was a man named Isaac Newton, and he was most known for being one of the greatest physicists and mathematicians of our time. And he was one of the most influential scientists as well. And he said, he referenced the great wise people that came before him. And he says, we master their wisdom and then we move beyond it. So leaving a legacy, it doesn't have to be hard or doesn't have to be difficult. Just start something. You don't have to be the Isaac Newtons or the Bill Gates or the Graham Anderson Probst and Whites. Just start something, because we create our own paths. We create our own impacts and we create our own legacies. So Isaac Newton said, if I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. And so we master their wisdom, then we move beyond it. So due to their wisdom, we grow wise and we say all that they say, but not because we are greater than they. What is your impact? What is your legacy? Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.